recording. So welcome to what I like to call Hebrew from day one. This is a class where you should be able to do some Hebrew, learn some Hebrew, even by the end of today. But I also call it Hebrew from day one because most of the letters that we will be learning are found in the first day in the creation story. So I'm going to tell you now that the primary goal is to be able to sound out Hebrew when you see it. Anything we put in front of you, you should be able to sound out. Hebrew is what is affectionately called, what I call a WYSIWYG. You know what WYSIWYG is? WYSIWYG is what you see is what you get. So English is a language where letters can sound different each time you see them in different words. So if I take the vowel A, that's written with an A, sometimes it's an A and it's an A and it's a and it's O. It's, I mean, different things depending on where it is in a word or the word itself or where the word came from. In Hebrew, like other languages, one of the reasons why I ask you what languages you have studied before is that sometimes I can give you an insight that may be more helpful from, let's say, if I say, oh, for example, like Spanish, if you see the letter A, it's always going to sound like ah. It's not going to sound like anything else. That's a WYSIWYG, what I call it. So in Hebrew, you should be able to sound out anything I put in front of you once you're finished with these 6 or 7 classes. Unlike English, I'm glad I'm not teaching you an English class right now. You won't necessarily know a lot of vocabulary, but since we're using the first day of creation as our core, you will know some of the vocabulary from that, which is part of why I chose that as our core, because if you're someone who doesn't know any Hebrew, it turns out that when I started teaching Hebrew in Louisiana, most of my students were not Jewish. When I was teaching Hebrew before Louisiana, which was New York and Chicago and Israel even, most people knew some Hebrew. So if by the end of the first lesson, you were able to read the letters for Shabbat Shalom and sing the bim bum, bim, 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 bum, Shabbat Shalom song, that was really exciting for you. But I got to students, especially my kids, my little kids, that you got to the end of a lesson and you read the word Shabbat and it's like whoosh, nothing. You could read the word Shalom, whoosh, nothing. So it's not helpful if you're learning a language and you have nothing to hook it on. So if you know no vocabulary whatsoever in Hebrew, then I thought I needed to give you something to hold on to. So the first day of the creation story, you are going to be able to read the words and potentially remember the words for things like let there be light. And I'll teach you insights about let there be light. I'll teach you an insight about why I think it's a terrible idea to translate the first word as in the beginning, and what I think might be better translations. I'll teach you insights about why it's way better to be learning the Torah in Hebrew than it is in English, just from that first day of creation. So it's not that you have to remember any of those things. You only have to be able to sound out the words. And because that's our goal, I want to start you with start you right off the bat with some things. So I'm going to share a screen. I'm sharing this screen. This is a page that is just for you. I'm not sharing this with other people yet. I may share it eventually, but this is just for you. This is similar to the page that everybody else is going to get to see, but this is a resource page. And so on this resource page, I have the Aleph Bet Song here, and I have what I call the cheating version of the Aleph Bet Song. Can you see that? The cheating version of the Aleph Bet Song has the names on it too. And maybe what I need is a better version of this. You've got that on that page. Here we go. One that's not going to be distracted. So I'm going to teach you the Aleph Bet Song, but it's not all of the letters in the Aleph Bet. So this is trivia time. If I ask you how many letters are there in the Aleph Bet, the answer you're supposed to tell me is 22. There are 22 letters in the Aleph Bet. But if I have to teach you the letters for the Aleph Bet, there's going to be many more letters than just that. So take a look. I'm going to throw these at you side by side. Well, I don't know if I can do side by side, but I've got, this is every letter in that I'm going to be teaching you in the class, and it winds up being 32 letters. And then this is the Aleph Bet Song, and it's a few more than 22, because sometimes, and let's see if this works today. My annotator didn't work last class. Yes, sometimes you have letters like these two that are identical, except one has a dot in it and the other doesn't. And they really are the same letter, but they sound different. So if you're a beginning Hebrew student, like you are, I am going to pretend that they're two different letters, and you're going to have to, and it's easier to think of them as two different letters. Eventually, when you're older, like in first or second grade Hebrew, then you'll be able to see why they're really the same letter. But for now, I'm going to treat them as different letters. I'm going to teach you the Aleph Bet Song as one of the first things we do, and I'm going to suggest that you start every practice session with an Aleph Bet Song. You do not have to know the names of the letters in order to be able to read Hebrew. In fact, sometimes knowing the names of the letters get in the way of you being able to sound out the letters. So for example, if the name of the letter is bet and you see a bet in the middle of a word, sometimes you might be inclined to say bet instead of just b. That's what happens sometimes when you're trying to teach a little kid how to read English, for example. So you don't have to know the names of the letters, but one of the coolest things about Hebrew is that every consonant in Hebrew starts with the consonant sound that the letter makes. Every consonant in Hebrew starts with the consonant sound that the letter makes. And I'm going to start you as an example, not on the first line, but the second line over here. So the letter Gimel, which you should recognize from a dreidel, sounds like G. The letter Hey sounds like H. That's another dreidel letter. It's part of why I picked this line, because hopefully you remember those two dreidel letters. The letter Dalet sounds like D. If we get to even like the letter Lamed sounds like L. In English, the letter that sounds like L is L. So you have to get all the way past the E before you get to the O. And M, you have to get past the E to get to the M. And don't even start me on W, because there's almost no W in W at all. But in Hebrew, every single consonant, the name of the consonant starts with the sound that the letter makes. So it's not a bad idea to learn the names, but you do not have to know the names in order to be able to read the sounds. I started you on the second line, partially because the first line, the very first word of the Hebrew Aleph Bet is Aleph. And the second letter is Bet. That's how it gets its name, the Aleph Bet. But if I ask you what consonant sound the letter Aleph starts with, you may want to say, and please don't say it, well, that's not a consonant at all. That's a vowel. And that's not the consonant sound that the letter starts with. You'll notice that the way I've transcribed it, I can make it really big so you can see it here. I started with like an apostrophe there. That's not a smudge. That's why I enlarged it for you. It's because it starts with something called a glottal stop, which means you close your throat down and open it up, which is really quiet. You can think of it as a silent letter, but it's still a consonant. And that's the consonant sound that the name Aleph starts with. And it's the sound that the Aleph actually makes. I don't want to confuse you by making you think that you need to know more than, well, yesterday's class, we didn't get to any of the consonants-ish. I tried to run through a bet for you. I don't want you to think that you need to know all of these letters today. I really don't want you to know all these letters today. That's way too much. We're supposed to be doing this in little amounts. But I do want you to start practicing the Aleph Bet Song. And I've got a few different ways of finding the Aleph Bet Song, and I'll show that to you. Actually, let me show you this because it's kind of cool. Whoop, go back here. On this new page that I made for you that I shared with you, but I will share again in an email. Not only do I have the Aleph Bet Song that you're seeing on screen, but I also have a really cool Aleph Bet Song on YouTube that you can use, where all the letters kind of swing by you. But for now, we're going to go back to this, and I'm going to do this big enough so you can see this. So this is a fun song to do because you get to repeat after me. If we put all of our microphones back on again, you'd hear everybody singing and it would be a disaster on Zoom, I'm sad to say. So I am going to be me and I'm going to be you. So you're going to hear a repeating of the parts. I have a few different Aleph Bet songs, and as we progress through learning more and more letters, I will share others with you. But for now, this is Debbie Friedman's Aleph Bet song, May her memory be a blessing. And it goes like this. Hopefully you will repeat after me. You on your side of the screen are the only one who's going to hear yourself sing. So don't be shy. Let yourself sing it out loud. I can't tell if you're saying it correctly. That's the bad part. But I also can't tell if you're singing out of tune. I don't care. Just say the sounds. Aleph Bet Vet. Aleph Bet Vet. Gimel Dalet Hey. Gimel Dalet Hey. And before I go on, I want to tell you that yes, Debbie Friedman did live in Texas for a number of years, and that's why she could get away with saying things like hey, as if that's one syllable. It's not a two-syllable word, but that's the way Texas works. If you speak Texan, you know, I always wanted to be a fly on the wall when my kids were learning about syllables, because almost every sentence here starts with like, well, then, and I'm not trying to make fun of an accent. I'm just trying to say that things that I thought were one-syllable words wind up being multisyllabic, and it's not supposed to be like that. I am starting the song again, and I am doing that on purpose because I want you to hear the beginning a bunch of times. Aleph Bet Vet, Aleph Bet Vet, Gimel Dalet Hey, Gimel Dalet Hey, whoops, Vav Zayin Chet Tet, Vav Zayin Chet Tet, and that's, by the way, your first chuching sound. If you can't chuch at all, I can try to teach you to chuch. There are actually two chuching sounds. There's a chet. This should have a dot under it and an underline so that you know it's a ch and not a h. It's not an h. It's a wet h. This is a chaf, and I always write them differently because officially it should be two different pronunciations. You do not have to know this today, but I am just telling it to you because maybe you can hear them. If you are older than 12 years old, and you have never chuched before, there's a very good chance that you will still not be able to chuch. And everyone who meets you, when you say your blessings and you say Baruch instead of Baruch, everybody's going to know that you started learning Hebrew after you were 12 years old. And I want you to just be proud of that. I want you to look yourself in the mirror every day and say, yes, I am from fill in the blank, Shreveport. Because you are never going to sound like a native speaker if you're starting to learn Hebrew now for the first time, and be proud of that. And if you go to Israel, like some people we know and love just did, if you go to Israel and you sound too much like an Israeli, but you really live in Texarkana, and they say, Efer Rachov Dizengoff, and you're going to say, Rachov Dizengoff, you're not even going to know where it is. So don't try to sound like an Israeli, or you'll have to give them directions, and it could be very embarrassing. Yes, question, go. I've unmuted you.
Oh, okay. I have been able to teach my friends how to ch because I learned it from Jeff Dunham. He calls it phlegm. Well, so you pretend that you're trying to get phlegm out of your throat and you're going.
that actually really works. But since we've got two different kinds, I am not teaching you either of these letters today. So I'm going to reserve all the chem, which is one of the delightful things about being on Zoom, by the way. There are usually days when I have to say, bring your goggles. We're going to learn some of the phlegmy letters this week. We don't have to worry about that. It's all on your side of the screen and all on my side of the screen. It's a very dangerous language to be teaching. I will teach you how to make these sounds. I'm kind of a little bit kidding, but I also don't want you to feel too hard on yourself if you can't make some of these sounds. I will teach you the pronunciation that Israelis are using today. Some of you are taking Hebrew because you want to learn prayers. Some of you are taking Hebrew because you want to learn Torah, biblical Hebrew. Some of you want to learn modern Hebrew. Some of you want to do all of the above. Whatever your purpose is, I'm going to teach you insights for all of them. But the Hebrew pronunciation I'm going to try to teach you most of all is the modern Israeli pronunciation, because that's the primary spoken version in the world today. So having said all that, but that's why I kind of paused on here for the chet. It's a and it's not a see, there's two different chs right there. And you'll hear that. And actually, I wasn't really doing my Israeli pronunciation yet. So we're going to start again. This is fun. Aleph Bet Vet, Aleph Bet Vet, Gimel Dalet Hey, Gimel Dalet Hey, Vav Zayin Chet Tet, Vav Zayin Chet Tet, Yud Kaf Chaf, Yud Kaf Chaf, Lamed Mem Nun, Lamed Mem Nun, Samech Ayin Pe Fe, Samech Ayin Pe Fe, Tzadi Kuf Resh, Tzadi Kuf Resh, Shin Sin Tav Ba Ba Da Ba Dam, Shin Sin Tav Ba Ba Da Ba Dam. I don't think that's how Debbie used to sing it, but that's how I do it because it's fun once we get there. She's got a part that at the end goes, let's learn the Aleph Bet simple. And we're not going to do that part either. But those are the letters. You do not have to know all the letters' names ever, but it helps eventually. And the reason why I teach you the song is because one day, although it's becoming less critical these days because of internet and stuff, but one day you may have to look a word up in a dictionary, or you may have to alphabetize something in your file cabinet. And if you do, you're going to need a song to refer to know which letter comes where. And so having a song for that is really helpful. And if you do practice the song, then you will know the names of the letters. And if you accidentally learn the names of the letters, you will also accidentally learn what each letter sounds like. I am going to suggest, you lost me for a minute, didn't you? My internet connection was unstable. It says it is, but it was. What I was saying is, there were jokes there. No wonder nobody was laughing. You might accidentally learn the names of the letters. If you accidentally learn the names of the letters, it's okay, because you will also accidentally learn what each letter sounds like. I'm going to tell you that it's helpful if you're singing, not just to have it in your ear, but also to see the letters of the song when you're singing the song. I had a woman who was an adult in my class, in a continuing education class. She brought her daughter in one day. It was a daytime class at a college here. And she brought her daughter in one day because the daughter had a dentist's appointment, and she brought the daughter in. And I asked the class, starting at about the fourth lesson, I asked the class, who wants to volunteer to lead the Aleph Bet Song at the beginning of class? And this child, who I never taught, says, ooh, let me do it. I said, well, that's really cool. Yes, of course, please come up and do it, because my grown-ups never go, ooh, let me do it. So she was volunteering for this, and she got up there and she starts singing. I said, no, wait. I want you to point to the letters. And she got up there and she said, Aleph, Bet, Vet. And she started pointing to the letters from left to right. That broke my heart. So I said, Mom, you have to take that Aleph Bet chart and put it on the refrigerator and sing it to the refrigerator and show her that it goes from right to left. Hebrew goes from right to left. And so so that at least when you look at the letters, it'll be, a better visual. Yes. So you want me to unmute you, or you got this? Unmuted, go.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I actually did something really interesting to help me remember that it goes from right to left. So I got this pronoun sticker that says she, they.
Yes.
And I wanted it to say they, she. So I wrote on it, because this is my note-taking book. So I wrote on it, read like Hebrew.
I love that.
And then
That's great.
made the point, and then it says they, she at the bottom, because I thought that would help me remember every time I open my notebook. And then also it's just a funny little thing.
I love that. And so what I try to do is actually when we're in person together, and I would hand you a textbook. Right now you're going to have to rely on the textbook that's online, and you can print it out yourself. But I always put it in a Hebrew opening direction. So I'm suggesting that you keep your notebook and you have it open from right to left. And I sometimes say, if at the end of these 6 weeks, if the only thing you've learned is that a Hebrew book you're going to want to open from right to left, I feel like I've accomplished something. But that's a good way to do it. I told my infamous story yesterday about why I think Hebrew goes from right to left. And it's because if the oldest thing you can think of that was written in Hebrew is, let's say, the Decalogue, Moses coming down with the stone tablets. And if you were going to be writing that, how many people here are left-handed? Anybody? Okay, we've got the same person as last night. So most people today are right-handed, and I'm going to make the educated guess that most people then were right-handed also. And so if I were asking you, I just zapped you a big chunk of stone. It's right in front of you, and a bangy thing and a chisel-y thing. It could be hammer and a chisel. It could be stones, whatever. I want you to imagine that you're going to write your name in English. I don't care. Write your name, the first letter of your name, using your bangy tool and your chisel-y tool. Go ahead, pick it up, try it. See if you could bang your name on it. And tell me if you think you'd rather be banging your name. I see you. You're not doing it. Try this. Pick up the hammer. Pick up your chisel. That's better. Thank you. You can laugh when you're doing it. I don't care. Are you chiseling it right to left, or are you chiseling it left to right? And I want to remind you that Band-Aids were not invented yet. So you will find that if you're chiseling your words, as I say, chiseling your receipts, you would be chiseling from right to left. So the mature languages, the ones that are from the chiseling days, they go from right to left. When one day somebody was collecting berries outside, and they realized that 3 days later their hands are still stained in berries, in berry juice. And so they say, well, what if I took a stick and I dipped it into berry juice, and I wrote on, like the inside of bark or something, and I used the berry juice, then my receipts would be much lighter and it would work better. So then you try to write with a stick and berry juice, and you try to write from right to left, and you realize that there's no berry juice on the bark, it's all on your hand. And so then you say, oh, well, if I'm going to write with berry juice, I better write from left to right. And then my hand is in front of the berry juice, unless you're left-handed. So then if you're left-handed and you're writing Hebrew, then you're really happy finally, because then you're finally writing in the right direction. So that's my story. Is it true? I'm not going to promise it's true, but I like that story. And so it'll remind you to keep things from right to left in Hebrew. So that's your Aleph Bet Song. And then I want to switch from that to teaching you. And you'll notice that these are consonants. You have probably heard, all of these things are consonants. You have probably heard that when you see written text, if you look at a Torah scroll, for example, or if you look at a cereal box or a romance novel, you will see only consonants. You will not see any vowels. I'm about to teach you the vowels, because if you can learn the vowels at the very beginning, being able to read Hebrew is going to be easier exponentially. I have tried it both ways, and it's much harder to, just trust me, it's going to be fun. Just trust me. Before I did that, I also wanted to show you this. This is this one, and this is this one. This is the Aleph Bet Song. This is the every Aleph. This is, nope, that's not the one. Let's try this one. This one, open up another one. There you go. Here we go. So this is not the song. This is every consonant that I'm going to teach you. And the reason why we go from 22 to 32 is that we would only count this as one and these two as one. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. Once we get to these letters, for example, this is a kaf. This is also a kaf. It's just a kaf without a dot in it, but it has a different pronunciation. So we're going to call it a chaf so that you can learn it separately. But this is one of the letters that has a different shape at the end of the word. There are 5 consonants that have a different shape at the end of the word. You do not have to know them today. You only have to know what I'm going to teach you. You don't have to get ahead of us. And the reason why I say that, and I say it a lot, is that I am going to teach you the correct pronunciation. And I'm going to teach you really fun ways to remember the letters. If you try to plot ahead without me, you may remember them with the wrong pronunciation or something. So I'm not saying you can't, I don't forbid you to do it, but it's, and I've already taught you a lot about the pronunciation by teaching you the song, but it's just a lot easier if you wait. And it's a lot less pressure on you than having to learn lots of letters. If you learn only 5 a week, you can keep up with that. It'll sink in better. but there are 5 consonants that have a different shape at the end of a word. In Arabic, every single, which is a sister language, it's a sister Semitic language, every single letter has a different shape at the end of a word. Hebrew only has 5 letters that have different shapes at the end of the word. So we have a few letters that have a different pronunciation if you put a dot in or take the dot out. And we have 5 letters that have a different shape at the end of the word. And if you are in kindergarten when it comes to learning Hebrew right now, which is where you all are today, then thinking of it as a separate letter is helpful. So there are about 32 letters then altogether. So having done that, the next thing I want to do, and you see what consonants look like. And you will not be allowed to see the version of the Aleph Bet with the names under it in English for much longer. That's just wimpy. I would rather not have you do that. Right now, if you don't know any Hebrew and all you know is the English, then okay, I'm going to let you have it. But I'm going to give you enough mnemonic devices, helpful ways of remembering that I would rather not have you thinking in English when you're trying to think in Hebrew. Because if you try to do both at the same time, it's going to break your brain. I don't want you to break your brain. So the next thing I want you to do, I can show you where this is on our web page. I am putting the Vowel Aerobics up here so you can look at them, but I'm also going to now give you this. This is what I call Vowel Aerobics. This is so that you can learn the vowels with using lots of different senses. So you'll notice that each row here going across is a different color. So these are aqua, and these are green, and these are red, and these are blue, and these are yellow. They have a gray background because it's hard to see yellow. But that's supposed to give you an English, I'm sad to say, clue to what the vowel sounds are. I'm going to tell you this, and it could break your brains a little bit. I don't want to break your brains. I just want to, you'll hear me say some things many times. You saw me do the beginning of the Aleph Bet many times. There was a reason for that. But you'll hear me say some things many times. And that's because every time I tell it to you, you're going to hear it in a different way. So if I tell you that everything going down in this column is a short vowel, and everything going down in this column is a long vowel, I don't want you to know that yet, but I'm going to tell it to you because one day I do want you to know that. And once I do, if I refer to it like that enough times, then it won't be a shock to your system. It's going to be a shock to your system today that I told you that, and you'll see why in a second. All I want you to know now is, you'll also notice this. The letter, the consonant that I've used for all of these things is an Aleph. You can ignore that fact. It really doesn't matter what consonant I'm using. I just want to show you the placement of the vowel by any consonant. It used to be that I would always draw like a box, and then you saw where the vowel was in relation to a box. The only problem is I'm using a Hebrew English word processor to generate these files, and I can't put vowels under boxes in my Hebrew word processor. So I picked a consonant just so that you could see, like this one, these things go under, some are under and some are next to. That's the vowels. And I wanted you to be able to see all that. But it turns out, and you'll learn this once we get into the first consonant lesson, that the Aleph is a great consonant to use for learning vowels because the Aleph really doesn't sound like anything. You open your mouth, and whatever vowel you put under it, that's what the sound is going to be. It's not going to be, you're not going to be hearing the consonant Aleph, but it's there. And it's an important part of this. But this is what I want you to do. This is aerobics. And remember, I can see you. So I want you to, if you see a line underneath a consonant, then I want you to stretch your hands up high and I want you to say, ah. Ah, that's what the sound of stretching sounds like. I can see you, you're not doing it. Ah, thank you, that's way better. You have to be the vowel. So if you see a line under a consonant, you sound like ah. If you see a line that's stretching out like this, it sounds like ah. So if you see a line like this, it sounds like ah. And if you see a line like this, oh, by the way, some of you are sitting next to each other. I have an important rule in my Hebrew class. No one is allowed to get hurt. So if you have to stretch like this, just so that nobody gets hurt, or somebody has to go frontwards and somebody has to go backwards, pop, no one is allowed to get hurt during Hebrew class. That's my first rule of Hebrew is nobody gets hurt. Hey, Bree, no one's allowed to get hurt during Hebrew class. We have a few people, I'm presuming Harriet's there too. We have a few people who are 2 people in a room. Nobody's allowed to get hurt. So please, no, don't send me your broken nose bills. I've just been through that. Thank you. All right. So you now have, and I already told you that this is a short vowel version of ah, and this is a long vowel version of ah, and you're going to hear the same exact sound on both sides. And if you are smart like Zoe was yesterday, you're going to say, well, what's the difference between this ah and this ah? And I'm going to tell you, this is a short vowel and this is a long vowel. The difference is not pronunciational, not pronunciational. You may, especially if your native language is English, you may never hear the difference between a short vowel ah and a long vowel ah, and you will be fine. Trust me. I will tell you how, like if your native language is Italian, then it may make a difference and you may actually be able to hear the difference between the short vowel ah and the long vowel ah. But most people will never say them differently, so it won't matter ever. I'm not kidding. When it's going to matter is how you spell words, which vowel you're supposed to put in a word. And that doesn't matter until you have words. We are a long way from having words to worry about. So now all you have to do is what I call decode the Hebrew. So if you see a consonant and you see this underneath it, just say the consonant sound and say ah. And if you see a consonant, even if it's the same consonant, and you see that, it's going to sound exactly the same. So please don't worry about the difference. Be happy that there is no difference. Be happy that whether it's this kind of an ah or this kind of an ah, it's just an ah. It's a twofer, okay? Just be happy. Now we get into the green vowel. For this one, you have to squeak your nose like this. E. So squeak your nose. E. That's this one. This one is a more complicated squeaking of your nose. You're going to squeak your nose with one hand, and you're going to bring the top of your ear down with the other hand. Don't bring the back of your ear frontwards. Bring the top of the ear down. You see what he's doing there? I don't know if it's a he or she. What they're doing here, they're bringing the top down. They're not bringing the front back. And that sounds like an E. So this one sounds like E, and this one sounds like E, all right? So 4 vowels, but only 2 sounds. How cool is that? You've got your basic ah, and you have your E and your E. And if you were in my class today, you'd be standing up and having to do this standing up. That's why I call it vowel aerobics. Kids have a ball with this. So now we're up to the red vowel. The red vowel, for some reason, is harder for some people to learn, especially in the South. In New York, it was really easy. In New York, lots of people would say, eh, fa. They would do all these great sounds. It doesn't happen as much in the South. I don't know why. So this one, you're going to be, 1 dot is your nose. And then you have 2 hands going like this, and you're going to go, eh. I call it the fed up vowel, eh, eh. Notice that I'm not writing the letter in English here. I'm trying to avoid that. I do not want you to be seeing this in English. I do have a set of flashcards where the back, if you turn it to the back, you'll see it'll say eh on there, but I don't want you to think in English when I see this. I want you to think eh when you'd see this. I want you to be the vowel. This is what I call the lazy eh. And I'm not going to lie, some of you have studied Hebrew before. And if you studied Hebrew a long time ago, like as long ago as I did, then you probably learned from someone who is an Ashkenazic teacher, and they're going to tell you that this is an A and not an E. I'm going to tell you that in modern Israeli Hebrew pronunciation, they're going to pronounce this as an E, and they're going to pronounce this as an E. And we will talk about that and the difference in pronunciations at some point. But for now, this is what I want you to know. You have 1 dot as your nose, and the other dot is 1 hand, and you go eh. So we have the 3 dot eh, and we have the 2 dot eh. Everybody got this so far? Do we have to review? We got it? If I go all the way up to the top, everybody's going to remember all those sounds? Let's go down 1 more. Ooh, that's a lovely color. Look at that. So we're going to start here. This guy, believe it or not, is zooming down the tube slide. If I just say zoom and I don't say tube, then lots of people, when I say, okay, which vowel is this? They say zzz. I kid you not. This is not a z vowel. This is an oo vowel. This is a zooming down the tube vowel. It's an oo. This is an oo. And you're never going to guess what this one is. Mr. Vav is up at bat, and the pitcher pitches it into his stomach. Ooh, and he says, ooh. I know you're surprised that he says ooh. So we have a zooming down the tube, and we have an ooh going into his stomach. Then we're going to come here, and this one has two pictures with a gray background so that you can see the yellow, because Mr. Vav is up at bat, and the pitcher pitches it over his head, and he says, oh. So here he's pitching it into his stomach, and it's an ooh, ooh. And here it's over his head, and he says, oh. And there's also a version of this where the dot, which is supposed to look, it's not a square in most places, but my typesetting it is, I guess. But there's a dot that is going over, and that's also going to be an O, even if the Vav is not there. O. And then this is what I like to call the saddest, most misunderstood vowel, because it sounds like O, which doesn't surprise you because he's right across from the O vowel. But if I come back here, you will see that in many places, in many books, in many prayer books, which is going to have, a prayer book will have the vowels. I told you things like romance novels and newspapers and cereal boxes, they won't have vowels, these vowel markings at all. But anything that does have vowel markings, like prayer books and Torah books, not a Torah scroll, but a Torah book. Children's books sometimes do have the vowels. Sometimes this ah is going to look identical to this. In my word processor, this this vowel has a longer bottom to it. You will find that sometimes, let's see if it's going to let me do this today. Sometimes this vowel looks exactly, oh, look, it's a cool color. Looks exactly like that, but it's still going to sound like an O because it's going to act like a short vowel in that word. Sometimes it's got a longer bottom. Sometimes it's got a separated bottom line. Oh, that's supposed to be straighter. Sorry about that. Pretend I'm not doing this with a mouse. Sometimes it's like a circular thing or something here. It's not as pretty as that, but anyway, it may look different. Most of the time, it's not going to look different at all. I'm always grateful when a book, especially let's say a Torah book, a Chumash, something that you're using to practice reading Torah, because if you're reading Torah in front of people, you are supposed to make it so that they understand it. And if I say ah instead of oh, I'm not really saying the right thing there. I will show you. Here's the guideline for today. The guideline for today is that 99% of the time, or no, 93.5% of the time, I make up all of my statistics, by the way, usually, but 93.5% of the time, if you see this vowel, the kamatz, which is this, if you see that, think it's an ah, don't think it's an o. It's sad, it's misunderstood, and it's rare. In my texts, you will usually know which one it is, okay? So those are the primary vowels. There's ah, there's e, there's there's o, there's u, and there's o, okay? And I teach it in that order because I want to be able to do a regular u before I teach the thing about the sad misunderstood vowel. I'm going to do something scary now, but I don't want anybody to worry about this, but I'm going to say them just because we've taught vowels so far. I'm going to tell you the names of the vowels. You never have to know the names of the vowels. You will never have to know these names. But because some of you have already studied some of this, and you may have seen names, and they're not going to be pronounced the way I'm pronouncing them, that worries me a little bit. And there are going to be times that I'm going to refer to vowel names. You'll see them in front of you. And so I just wanted to let you know. I'm hoping that names of things like the consonants and the vowels, you'll learn more by osmosis than necessity. So this is this ah. I'll zoom again and get them close so you could see them. And let me eliminate, hold on, clearing my drawings, take those guys away. So this is called a patach. Ah, this is called a kamatz. You'll notice that the name of the vowel usually has the vowel sounds in them too, like the names of the consonants start with the consonant sound that it makes. The names of the vowels have the vowel sound in them. This is a patach. This is a kamatz. This is a chirik, e. You should knee jerk by now. You should, every time you see a vowel, you should automatically, your hands should go right to where it's supposed to go. I was proctoring a test once, and the kids were in these like language carols, so, you know, so they've got like these walls next to them, and they're all sitting at their desk, but there are these walls next to them, and the kids were, and people are going to want to start coming in for that next class in a minute, but I'm watching them trying to take the test, and they're going. I thought they were cheating, but they can't see each other, so I knew they weren't cheating. But anyway, so but if I point to a vowel, you should just automatically go directly to what that vowel sound does for your body. So a chirik malay, a segol, a tzera, a kubutz, which may remind you of the word kibbutz because it means a gathering. It's a gathering of dots. A shuruk, a cholam, these are both cholams, and this is a kamatz katan. Katan means small because the short vowels are all small vowels. So that's them. And then the next one I have to show you, just so that you'll have seen all the vowels. We're not going to start with consonants until next time, but so that you'll have seen all of the vowels. We have a few more. We used to call these things below the line for my kids because I had a big poster and these were below the line. So the kids like saying below the line. So you may hear me refer to them as that. So these two dots like this are called a schwa. You may know what a schwa is in English. And usually a schwa is kind of like almost no sound at all. So some dictionaries will tell you that is, this one's sad to me. It'll tell you that it is the first and last A in the word America. That's as much of a sound as it's going to make. That's not a full vowel sound. I like thinking of it as the E at the end of the word, like reader. It's like, but if there was a D and an R and there was no E, it would still make that sound, reader. That's what it would sound like. So it's really the absence of vowel sound, which is why I put it on another page. It's almost not even a vowel. And it acts in two ways. I like to think of it as kind of one of those traffic lights, but imagine that it doesn't have a yellow. It only has a red and a green. So it's either going to stop, we'll call this the red one, stop, which means it's totally silent. If I need a class to get quiet, I'll say, sound like a resting schwa. I could say sound like an Aleph too. That gets them quiet also. But sometimes it acts like it's a moving schwa, also known as a mobile schwa. And this one, by the way, is called, I love it, it's called a quiescent schwa. We'll talk about that another day. But a moving schwa sounds like I just said. It sounds like so the kids say that sounds like a burp. So one of the first words that the kids learn is slicha, because that's how you say excuse me if you just sounded like you burped. So we go slicha, and they love doing that one. This is something that you will see. I'm going to point out that it is a moving schwa under a silent consonant, and a silent consonant or an essentially silent consonant can't have a moving schwa under it without some help, because you can't have a sound unless there's enough of a sound like a b to have a leftover from. So if you see this, then know that it's a moving schwa, but it's going to sound like ah. And if you see this, that looks like buckshot, know that it's a moving schwa, but it sounds like eh. And if you see this, know that it's a moving schwa, but it sounds like oh. And that's the secret to those. And then we have some that are really fun. These are diphthongs. Diphthongs are kind of like, you know how you've got primary colors that you mix to make other colors? This is primary vowels that you mix to make other vowels. So this is when it's kind of like an O plus an E sound, like an I. This is oi. That's how you write oi. It's turquoise, in case you were guessing. Turquoise, oi. This is white. It's I, which freaks people out to think that I, which you think of as a primary, like a primary color, you would think of I, as, you know, the long I sound as a primary sound, but it's not. It's a diphthong. You cannot make I without saying I. That's how you say I. It's got two vowel sounds to it. And this is another one of those things. A is A. This is how you get A. For those of you who are wondering, how am I ever going to get to that A sound that I learned when I was studying my Ashkenazic vowels, and that was an A. So those are your vowels. And that's as much as we need to do today. What I do want to show you, though, in addition to that, is get us back to here. if you go to this page and you click on that for the Hebrew from day one, this is a page that I'm hoping to revamp. I have had this website since 1990 something, and it's really clunky, and these things think I'm suspicious. I'm not suspicious. It's not suspicious. But this is the whole curriculum on one page. And so here we have the Aleph Bet Song and Vowel Aerobics, and I encourage you to look at it on this. These are their little videos showing you what we just did. Another Aleph Bet Song on there. Then this is going to be lesson 1, but we haven't done lesson 1 yet. There's a video from when I taught it before. This black box here is the text. It's the chapter of lesson 1 once we get to lesson 1. So I want to show you a page. So this is, by the end of lesson 1, you will be able to read these 2 words. These are the first 2 words of the Torah. And I want to show you the vowels. I just want you to look at the vowels. This vowel is this vowel is e. This vowel is e. This vowel is a. And this vowel is a. So now when you're in services on Friday or Saturday and you're looking at the prayer book, I expect you to be punching the people next to you. No, you should not be sitting that close to anybody next to you. Anyway, that's the end of our class for this. I am going to stop the share. I'm going to stop the recording.